Today is Sunday, April 30th, 2023. I don't know how the audio quality on this is going to come out. As you can hear, or maybe you can't, there's some music being played in the background that I don't have control over. So, um, tried to avoid this situation before, but it seems to be becoming more and more of an obstacle to me doing these videos. And I don't really want that. So I'm gonna try, and you'll have to give me your feedback on how um, audible and understandable everything is. And then I'll have to take your feedback and probably see what I can do. Um, Hope you've been having a wonderful week. It's been kind of a rainy, cool week here in Southern Ontario, but hopefully the weather's looking up. Things go back to the nice hot weeks we had a couple weeks ago. And, just like the real estate market is heating up, so too is the weather. So spring is always a great season. When spring is sprung and the trees are in bloom, that should always make, shouldn't say that should always make, that should always lift spirits, right? So in today's world, the pursuit of financial freedom has become a common goal for many individuals. As we navigate the complex landscape of wealth creation, one proven strategy stands out. Developing a portfolio of cash flowing real estate properties. Today, I'm going to discuss some of the benefits of building such a portfolio and how it can lead to a job free life, provided you're willing to work hard and stay committed to your goals. Real estate investing is often considered one of the most effective ways to generate passive income, and for good reason. A well-structured real estate portfolio can provide a steady stream of income, allowing investors to live job-free and focus on what truly matters in life. Let's dive into the advantages of investing cash-flowing properties and how we can pave the way to financial freedom. Pardon me. The primary advantage of owning cash flowing real estate is passive income, the ability to generate passive income. This is the income you receive from the tenants in the form of rent, which can help you to cover your mortgage, property taxes, insurance, and maintenance costs. As you accumulate more properties, your passive income can eventually surpass your living expenses, allowing you to quit your job and live financially independent, financial freedom. Oh, pardon me. Okay. So, passive income. Another thing, leverage. Real estate investing offers a unique opportunity to leverage your capital, which means using borrowed funds to increase your investment potential. By putting down a small percentage of the purchase price, you can acquire a valuable asset that has the potential to appreciate over time. This allows you to build a substantial portfolio with a relatively limited upfront capital, accelerating your path to financial freedom. Then we have appreciation. In addition to, what's going on here? Did you freeze, computer? Uh-oh, my computer's frozen. Can you see me? I don't know if I'm coming through clearly or not. Appreciation. In addition to generating passive income, real estate investments can also appreciate in value over time. While there are no guarantees, historically, property values have generally trended upwards, 2, 3, 4% a year. As the value of your investments increases, so does your net worth. This appreciation can contribute to your overall wealth and provide additional financial security in the long term. Note, only market participants are beneficiaries of appreciation. The price of real estate may go up over time, but if you don't own real estate, you do not benefit from that increase. Only the people who do will. And of course, the more you own, the more you might benefit. There are also tax advantages. Real estate investing offers several tax advantages. Deductions for mortgage interest, like we talked about last week, property taxes, and depreciation. I guess we talked about depreciation last week. These deductions can help offset your rental income, reducing your overall tax liability, and maximize your cash flow. Additionally, when it's time to sell your properties, you may be eligible for favorable capital gains tax treatment, further contributing to your financial success. Remember, taxes are your biggest expense by proportion of your income. Finally, there's the inflation hedge. Real estate investments can also serve as a hedge against inflation. As the cost of living increases, so does the demand for rental properties, driving up rental rates. This means that as an investor, you can potentially benefit from both increased cash flow and property appreciation, even during periods of high inflation. So let's discuss the process of building a cash flowing real estate portfolio and the steps that you need to take to achieve financial freedom. First, there's education. Start by educating yourself about real estate investing and the various strategies available. Read books, attend seminars, and network with experienced investors to gain valuable insights and knowledge. The more you learn, the better equipped you'll be to make informed decisions and minimize risks. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to look foolish. Nobody knows everything when they start, and a lot of times that question that you think is stupid is actually exactly the question that needs to be asked. Set clear goals. Develop a clear plan, outlining your financial goals and what steps you're going to need to take to achieve them. How many properties are you going to need to acquire? And what is the amount of passive income that you need to live job-free, if that's your goal, or whatever amount of income is necessary to achieve the goal that you set for yourself. Remember, success starts with a clear vision and a strong commitment to your goals. Thirdly, you should build a team. Real estate investing is a team sport, as Robert Kiyosaki likes to say. Surrounding yourself with knowledgeable professionals is crucial to your success. Build a network of real estate agents, mortgage brokers, property managers, and contractors who can help you find, finance, and manage your investments. All of these various people can be sources of knowledge and insight for you, as well as providing you with whatever skill set that makes it worthwhile to keep them in your orbit in the first place. Fourth, start small, scale up. Begin with one property, learn from experience, and build your confidence. As you gain some expertise and familiarity with the process, you can add more properties to your portfolio and scale up systematically. This reduces the risk to you and allows you to apply the lessons learned from each investment to future deals. For many people, the cadence might look like one property, several years, another property, several more years, another property, a couple years, another property, a couple years, another property, a property. You see, it's a process, and you ramp up. And oftentimes, the beginning is the slowest part because either the financial resources are lacking or the knowledge is lacking. But once you've gained either piece, right, then you can go faster and faster, and you can accelerate your business, your returns, your investments, and your effort, right? Finally, diversification. Diversify your real estate portfolio by investing in different types of properties. You might put some of your money into single-family homes, some into multifamily homes, and some into commercial properties. This can spread out your risk depending on the stability of the economy and ensure that you have income streams from different segments of the economy in case something changes in the marketplace, right? Also, we have to make sure that we develop consistent cash flow management. Monitor and manage your cash flow diligently. Monitor and manage your cash flow diligently to ensure you're consistently generating positive cash flow from your investments. Keep track of your income and expenses. And excuse me. Pardon me. And look for ways to maximize your rental income and minimize vacancies. Proper cash flow management is the key to achieving financial freedom. And don't forget to reinvest your profits. As your real estate portfolio generates income, consider reinvesting your profits into additional properties or paying down your mortgages more quickly. This can help you accelerate the growth of your portfolio and achieve financial freedom sooner. It's important to know that building a cash flowing real estate portfolio requires hard work, dedication, and perseverance. While the journey may be challenging, the rewards of financial freedom and a job-free life potentially are well worth the effort. Developing a portfolio of cash flowing real estate properties is an excellent strategy for achieving financial freedom and living job free. With the right education, a clear vision, a strong team, and a commitment to working hard, you can build a robust portfolio that generates consistent passive income, allowing you to live life on your terms. Remember, the key to success is taking action. Mindset. Start today by educating yourself, setting clear goals, and taking the first steps towards building your own cash flowing real estate portfolio. With persistence and dedication, you can create a life of abundance and financial freedom. As you embark on this exciting journey, always remember that the richest people in the world build networks and invest in their financial education. Robert Kiyosaki's famous words. By following this path and developing a portfolio of cash flowing properties, you too can join the ranks of the financially free and live a life of wealth, prosperity, and independence. But you got to work for it, right? So, I mean, I hope that that's pretty straightforward, right? Cash flowing properties have a lot of advantages. They allow us to develop a portfolio using, for example, leverage in a way that is really very difficult to do with other assets. Certainly, you can also leverage the stock market, right? There are other things you can leverage, but it's a much more dangerous proposition, right? Obviously, whenever you use leverage, that is borrowing someone else's money to buy assets, right? There's a certain amount of risk, right? That the thing that you buy becomes worth less than the money you borrowed to pay for it, and now you're caught in the spot. And if that spot is deep enough, that's called a margin call, at least when you do it with stocks, because stocks are lent to you on margin, which is basically on the valuation of the stocks you already hold. And usually it's a proportion of that, right? Real estate is really the same thing. Pardon me. Obviously, the proportion that you hold is the 20%. They lend you the rest, the 80%. But with real estate, you don't get margin called. So as long as you're able to make your payment, then there's no margin call. Doesn't matter what the price of your house does. If you borrowed $1 million and now your house is only worth $500,000, as long as you keep making the payments, you don't lose that house. Whereas if you do the same thing with stocks, you would get margin called and all your money would be gone. But with the real estate, maybe you're in a really bad spot having bought a house for $1 million that's only worth $500,000. Obviously, losing $500,000 sucks. But nobody forces you to sell now that your house is only worth $500,000. And so you can wait. Maybe in a couple of years, it'll go back to being worth $1 million. Maybe it'll be worth more than $1 million, right? Maybe it'll never be worth $1 million again, but you can rent it for the next 10 years and make $500,000, which would be really, really great rent, but nonetheless, right? And make $500,000. And then you can get yourself out of the situation that way. So real estate allows for a lot of flexibility in relation to using leverage, because there's a physical asset that leverage is tied to, and that makes all parties more secure. That makes all parties more secure in the transaction, and therefore there can be more trust, and you're not going to get margin called, right? So real estate is incredibly powerful that way. Also, investing for cash flow allows you to calculate your wealth, which of course you could do with other investing methods and with other asset categories. But real estate makes it very easy, right? So I'm going to quickly define what wealth is, because I think it's a term that people use. Wealthy, he's wealthy, they're from a wealthy family, blah, 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 stuff like that. It's a term people use a lot, but they don't understand really, right? I think for your average person, when they say wealth, they mean people who have lots of money, perhaps riches, a big bank balance, somebody who can afford a yacht. That's what wealth is. This is a very poor definition. I like to use Robert Kiyosaki's definition. At least that's where I got it from. I'm sure he probably didn't come up with it, because it's a really well thought out definition. So probably it's being developed over the years. But essentially, wealth is a measure of, what do we want to call it? Buying power over time, I guess. I'm not sure buying power is the correct term, but work with me here. essentially, if you have $200,000 in the bank, you have $200,000 of cash in the bank. You don't work, you have no income, no assets, no nothing. You just have $200,000. Okay? If you live your life in such a way that it costs you $100,000 a year to live, doesn't matter why, just that's what it costs you per year to live. It could be said that you have 2 years of wealth. In other words, you can maintain your current lifestyle for 2 years, right? You have $100,000 a year that you're spending, you have $200,000 in the bank, you got 2 years of wealth, right? Alternatively, you got the same $200,000, but you live a $50,000 a year lifestyle. Well, now it could be said that you have 4 years of wealth, right? You can maintain your current lifestyle for 4 years, $50,000 a year, $200,000 in the bank. For 4 years, you don't need to work. You don't need to make investment income. You don't need to do anything. You have 4 years of wealth, right? Now, this is a good definition of wealth. Of course, this is a very unrealistic picture of the world. You usually don't just have $200,000 sitting in the bank with no income, no asset appreciation, no nothing, right? For starters, if you put $200,000 in the bank will pay you 2 or 3, or in years gone by 0.5% of interest on that money. So if nothing else, you would get that, right? And of course, there's a lot of ways you could deploy that money to get more. So the idea of wealth is how long you can maintain your lifestyle. So if you have an investment portfolio that pays $100,000 per year, and you have this $100,000 a year lifestyle, you have achieved infinite wealth or financial freedom, because every year your portfolio will generate enough income for you to live off of, right? Similarly, if you have that same $100,000 portfolio, but you're the person with the $50,000 a year lifestyle, you have double infinite in wealth, basically. And what that means is you're either going to increase your wealth, right? You're spending half of your income every year, right? So half of your income is being invested into further income, or you could increase your lifestyle by 100% to consume all of that wealth and get to just infinite wealth, where your wealth should theoretically last you forever. We take the analogy one step further. If you've got $2 million in the bank and you're that same person who lives $100,000 a year, you have 20 years of wealth, right? So wealth is basically a measure of how well you can maintain your lifestyle over time. And as you can see, it's a very subjective measure. It's not an objective measure, right? Because your lifestyle is up to you. You can spend $25,000 a year. You can't spend zero. That's not possible, right? None of us can survive on $0 a year. I guess I shouldn't say none of us, but you'd be living a really extreme lifestyle to survive on $0 a year. But you could probably survive on $10,000 a year if you worked really hard to do so, right? So what lifestyle you're willing to live at is obviously our numerator, right? And I guess it's our denominator, isn't it? Actually, it's our denominator, right? If we're doing a fraction, it's on the bottom, and on the top is how much money we have. So how many times, how long can I live my lifestyle number and my actual overall wealth, right? And so for most people, the picture doesn't look like any of the pictures I painted there, right? There's not 20 years of wealth or 2 years of wealth. Even for a lot of people, there's like barely a year of wealth, right? But the goal, right, is to build up a portfolio of cash flowing assets that are bringing in income to extend out that wealth, right? So if I have $100,000 in the bank and I earn let me go back to my original analogy. I have $200,000 in the bank and I live $100,000 a year lifestyle, and I earn $50,000 a year from assets. Well, now I have 3.5 years of wealth, right? Because I have my original 2 years of wealth from my $100,000 a year, and I have $200,000 in the bank. But after year one, I will spend $100,000, leaving me with $100,000. I'll also earn $50,000. So now I have $150,000. At the end of year two, I will spend another $100,000, leaving me with $50,000. But then I will add another $50,000 to it. Now I've got $300,000. Well, I'll have $100,000 left, which means now I can go to year three and spend all that money, right? And I'm going to earn another $50,000. So I have 3.5 years of wealth now, right? By adding in that income. So the goal is to boost that income up until hopefully it hits the same level as our lifestyle. And once it reaches that point, you're retired, right? At that point, your life is yours. You do what you want. You no longer need to work because your income has met your expenditures, right? And then what usually happens for most people, most investors, if I were to draw a graph, actually, can I draw a graph on the screen here? I don't know if I can. So if I could just draw a graph, it would be a pretty shallow slope, and then you kind of reach financial freedom or independence here. And usually for a lot of people, it then becomes a much steeper curve. And I mean, the reason for that is pretty straightforward, right? During this period when you're building, you're working, you're doing other things, you're distracted. So only so much of your effort goes into growing your wealth. But once you reach that financial independence point, for a lot of people, now they don't have to do the working anymore. So they can put all their effort into growing their wealth. And so it often takes off kind of like a hockey stick. The difficulty is, of course, getting there, right? And so that's why you want to focus your portfolio on cash flowing assets, right? That have tax advantages so you can take advantage of depreciation, so that you can defray the costs of your taxes, your taxable income, right? So that you can accelerate, you can snowball, you can build this thing faster and faster and get on a trajectory that is going to take you towards your stated financial goals, right? And when you do that, right, then you end up with wealth, really. I mean, that's what happens, right? Cash flow. Cash flow is, of course, very good for this because it's that income, right? You could, for example, accomplish the same thing on the stock market using purely growth stocks, right, and purely equity. But that becomes more complicated. One, it's complicated for tax reasons, right? That equity growth is going to trigger capital gains taxes, which can be, I don't want to say they're complicated to calculate because that's not exactly true, but they're annoying certainly to calculate and work with. Whereas if you have cash flow, then that can be income, which can be offset by the depreciation of the asset that the income is coming from, which allows you to, in many cases, not all cases, but in many cases, receive most or all of the income from that property tax-free, right? Because oftentimes your rental income after expenses and everything are paid is going to be a lot less than the 3 or 4% that you're allowed to depreciate that property, right? For example, if we have $1 million property, 4% depreciation is $40,000, right? If you're going to profit $40,000, right, you're going to profit $40,000 on that property. That means that you're collecting in profit $3,300 a month, right? So you can imagine you're charging somebody rent, and after paying all the expenses, the taxes, the mortgage, the everything, you got $3,300. It's a lot, right? So the depreciation is going to offset all the income that you're getting from your property in most cases, and then some of the income that you generate from your job as well. Right. The other thing about cash flowing properties, and then I'm going to cut it short today because you can hear the sniffles and everything. But the other thing about cash flowing properties is that because they produce an income, right, as long as they cash flow, then you don't need to worry about the mortgage because it's being paid for by the tenants, right? So now you're free to continue focusing on your job or on acquiring more assets as long as you're purchasing cash flowing properties. Now, a lot of the times when you look in the market, if you just listen to what I'm saying, or if you watch some people on YouTube, or if you watch videos, or if you read books about investing in cash flowing property, everybody will talk about, okay, well, expenses need to be lower than rental income and blah, 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 blah. And you start looking around, maybe your market in the GTA as an example, although this is true anywhere in the world, you might find that you can't buy a house that has cash flow. It may be impossible, right? You may look at that market up. Okay, well, first of all, I should not say impossible. If you look hard enough, you will find, but it might be incredibly difficult to find. You may not have the time, the patience, the stomach, or the aptitude to go looking for it, right? So if that's the case, and it's very understandable if that's the case, because it could certainly be a lot of work. If that's the case, it's going to depend on your goals, but there is no reason why you can't buy a house today that does not cash flow, but is close. Okay, that's very important. It's got to be close. That you understand it doesn't cash flow, and so you budget accordingly. That is, you make sure you have the funds to pay off that mortgage for the foreseeable future, maybe the next 5 years or so, just to make sure that that property is safe and secure financially. There's nothing wrong with buying a property that negatively cash flows. Let's say you buy a house, it loses $500 a month. That sucks. Like $6,000 a year. That's not nothing, but that's okay. That's okay. $6,000 is not that much. If you think about it, I'm just going to use an example. I'm in the GTA, so the prices here are all crazy. I mean, the world's price, things have gotten crazy this last couple of years because of all the money printing. But at least right now, we're in the GTA and average home price is like around $1 million. So I'm just going to use that as an illustrative number. If you purchase a house that's worth $1 million and it's losing $500 a month, it loses $6,000 a year. But if that house appreciates just 2%, it's $1 million house, 2%, $20,000. You're going to lose $6,000. You made $14,000, right? True, that money does not go in your pocket. You can't pay any bills with it, right? Like your budget is going to be tighter because you had to give up that $6,000 and you don't get the 14 back right away. But that's what the property is going to do. And pardon me. And so over time, right, if you're not confident that you can find the property that cash flows today, you can buy that property that loses some money. Next year, you can raise the rent. The year after that, you can raise the rent. The year after that, you can raise the rent. Generally speaking, the rent goes in one direction. It goes that way slower than you might like, especially if you buy a house that doesn't cash flow because you're waiting for it to get there. But it does increase. So you can buy a house that doesn't cash flow today with the plan and the goal in mind that in 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 years, it will cash flow, right? One of the big things about real estate investing anyways is that most properties you buy don't cash flow when you buy them because there's something wrong with them. They need tenants, they need work, they need something. And so you have to spend that money up front before it becomes an asset that pays you anyways, right? So part of investing is there is a cost to things. You buy an investment, right? And so when you calculate, right, whether or not this is a good deal, right? When you're doing the math on, hey, does this thing cash flow, or my taxes, my insurance, my expenses, how much income am I expecting to make off of this thing? If you say, hey, it's going to cost me $6,000 a year in negative cash flow for the next 3 years until I believe I'll be able to get to cash flow neutral or maybe even cash flow positive, well, work that into your equation. Like just take the purchase price and add that cost onto it. And then say, oh, yeah, okay, so, I was going to buy this property for $900,000, but actually I'm going to have to carry it for 3.5 years at an average cost of $6,000 a year. So that's going to be about $20,000 in extra expenses. All right, so it's a $920,000 house. Do you still want it? Do you still think it's a good deal? Do you still think it's a good investment? If that $20,000 is going to stop you, then it probably was never that good of an investment, right? And if instead you sit down and you add on the $20,000 and you go, wow, no, I'd still be really happy to own this, then go ahead and buy it, right? I definitely think, and this is just true of life in general, I think it's probably probably the fault of just the modern era and kind of how life has gone with computers and the internet and technology and all these things. But like we're so capable of watching other people's successes, right? And of course, the spotlight shines on success. The spotlight typically shines on one of two things: spectacular failure or success. What it does not shine on is mediocre failure and mediocre success. Those are the things that the spotlight ignores, right? So like we don't shine the spotlight on people who are garbage truck drivers or workers, right? Don't know why not. There's certainly mediocre successes, right? Like that's a good job. That's a good life. Certainly compared to the lives a lot of people on this planet live, right? But we don't really shine the spotlight on those people, right? Because it's a mediocre success. It's not a major success. the spotlight goes on major success and major failure, right? And I think that trains everybody to be afraid to fail, right? And to think that success looks like perfection. And, for me, probably one of the people I look up to the most, or one of the people I admire the most, is Elon Musk. There's so many reasons. I won't go into them, but I think he's an amazing, if incredibly strange individual. And one of the things that I think is very neat, I guess, about Elon Musk is, Elon Musk is probably our era's Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, maybe Leonardo da Vinci. There's probably a lot of other comparisons I could make to great thinkers, great engineers, great inventors throughout time. And he's probably that guy for us now, today, where we are. And, when you think of Michelangelo or Da Vinci or Thomas Edison or Nikola Tesla or some of these people, it's funny, I don't like to mention Nikola Tesla because while he's probably one of the greatest inventors of all time, also people already associate him with Elon Musk, so it feels a bit, but anyways, with all of these people, what we see as sort of the children of history is we see the fruits of their labors. We see Thomas Edison's light bulb, Nikola Tesla's AC power network, right? We see Leonardo da Vinci's flying machine, or the Mona Lisa, or some of his great engineering feats and aqueducts and so forth. Actually, I don't know what his engineering feats were, but I know he tried to build a bunch of things. He came up with a bunch of concepts that were ahead of his time, and et cetera, right? Isaac Newton. There's another one. I could name names all day long. But anyways, we see the fruits of their labor, right? We don't see the over 1,000 times Thomas Edison tried to make a light bulb, experimenting with different filaments and gas mixtures and etc. that failed, right? We don't see the literal years Nikola Tesla spent kind of in weird seclusion working on his designs and his experiments, right? We don't see, I don't know enough about Michelangelo's life, for example, but we don't see whatever struggles and difficulties that he went through in his time period. And what I think is really cool about Elon Musk is I just watched his spaceship blow up. What was that, a week ago, right? And I just watched him buy Twitter for $45 billion or something like that, only for it to be revalued just a few weeks ago for $20 billion. So he lost half the value in that acquisition. For a genius investor, that's a hell of a move, right? He fails, and because he's such a stunning success already, he has the spotlight on him, so his failures are spotlighted too. And I think it's very interesting because you see very clearly that he's not afraid to take a risk. I mean, look at what Twitter was. That's a major risk for something that he believes in, for something that he sees a vision behind. I've talked on this seminar, this channel many times about mindset and the value of believing in the goal, the mission, the objective. Okay. Elon Musk goes out there and says, I think freedom of speech is important, whatever that means to you. I don't care. What he means by it is literal, absolute freedom of speech. And he thinks that Twitter is a good and important vehicle for making sure that is maintained. And he said, you know what? I'm going to buy it because I believe in this. Now, it's a bad investing. It's a bad investing practice, okay? If you're trying to be a successful investor, maybe believing in the mission as much as Elon Musk does is not a good idea, right? It's obviously made him wildly successful as an investor, but also an entrepreneur. And that's a different type of investor hat to wear. If you're not going to be an entrepreneur, his level of crazy faith is probably counterproductive. But it still stands to illustrate the point. You have to believe in yourself and what you're doing, in the action that you're taking, and in the follow through, because that's what is actually going to cause you to take action, B, you to learn and expand and to stretch yourself and to grow, right? And then that is what is going to allow for C, all of your success, right? And if you don't ever have the belief to take the action, the rest can never follow, right? The rest can never follow. And building up a portfolio, cash flowing properties, it's very straightforward. It's very similar to walking, but you got to do it. And, just like walking, Some of us walk at, I don't know, 18 months, 12 months maybe. Some of us wait for 24. Some of us will sadly never walk. And a couple of us walk so damn well that we're Usain Bolt or LeBron James or Lionel Messi, right? There are levels to these things. But just because Usain Bolt can run twice as fast as I can, it doesn't mean I can't walk. And so just because there are people out there, maybe names like Donald Trump and Robert Kiyosaki, who've been investing in real estate for 40, 50 years and who are tremendously wealthy and famous, it doesn't mean that you can't buy one house every 5 years and retire a multi-millionaire, right? You could also go and try to compete with Trump and Kiyosaki, and some people do, and you might want to buy 1,000 homes in your first 10 years and blah, blah, blah. That's a completely achievable goal for that small group of people who are crazy hyper-focused and want to work really hard. And if that's you, kudos, right? But even if that's not you, even if you just want a peaceful, quiet, relaxed life, put the time aside. What does it cost you? I mean, in real terms, pardon me. What does it cost you to buy a home once every 5 years? You know, if you take the average working life of an adult, let's say, let's take modernity. Really, it should be age 20, but let's start with age 25 as people go to school and whatever and screw around in their young days. So age 25, you start buying real estate. Age 65, you're going to retire. That's 40 years. 40 divided by 5 is 8. That means over the course of your lifetime, just buying one property every 5 years, which is a relatively slow pace, right? Saving up maybe $10,000 to $20,000 a year for your down payment every 5 years, right? You can acquire 8 properties, okay? 8 properties that cash flow, you know, let me call it $400 a month, is going to mean that you're going to make $3,200 a month passively, right? Before you get out of bed, $3,200 is going to arrive in your account by the time you're age 65. You haven't cashed your pension yet. You haven't gone in for a day of work yet. You haven't done anything, right? And that's not to mention, obviously, you're going to have the net worth of owning 8 properties, which are all appreciating at 1 or 2% per year. And let's just imagine you have 8 $1 million properties. You have an $8 million $8 million worth of real estate, and then that appreciates by, I don't know, 2%. That's $160,000 a year, right? So talking about $3,200 a month, right? So over $40,000 a year of passive income plus $160,000 passive appreciation. You get to 65, you're making $200,000 a year without doing anything really, right? And all you did was lazily invest once every 5 years, right? So there's a path towards great wealth with relatively low effort, but the effort, it has to be there. And that's where mindset comes in. You got to make a plan. That's why it's so important to have a plan. Make a plan that is clear, that you understand, and that you believe in, because that makes it possible for you to follow through, right? To have faith, to be brave when others are fearful, right? And that's really the difference maker, right? Is if you do what 90% of people are doing, you're going to get the results that 90% of people get, right? If you do what the 10% of people are doing, you're going to get the 10% of people's results within reason. And investing is what, I don't know if it's 10%, it's probably more than that, but that is how you successfully get ahead, right? And we all know that that's true. Your parents taught you that from a young age. They just had really bad language for it, right? They used to tell you, hey, study hard, go to school, get a good education. What is that? That's called investing. It's called investing in you, in your human capital. Invest in your human capital so that you have a future. It's not bad advice, right? But even better than investing in your human capital is invest in actual capital. And the reason why investing in actual capital is better than human capital is because, well, it's funny. A lot of times the people who will harp on the most about investing in your human capital will be immigrants. And one of the things that they'll say, certainly I heard this growing up, was invest in your education because it's the one thing they can't take from you, which already starting off is an incredibly scarcity mindset way to think and speak. But invest in your education is the one thing they can't take from you, right? If all this in this country burns down tomorrow, but you know how to doctor, you can always move to another country and be a doctor. If you know how to engineer, you can always move to another country and engineer. If you know how to, whatever skill it is that you have, paint, walk, talk, blah, 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 you can always go do it somewhere else. And so that's the thinking behind investing in yourself and in education, It's not a bad thinking. And certainly investing in education is not a bad thing to do, especially when you're young and you've got lots of time. But if you invest in assets, well, assets have a few advantages over you. First of all, they're multipliable. There's only one of you. No matter how skilled you get, no matter how smart you are, no matter what it is I teach you, to be a lawyer, a doctor, engineer. I mean, don't get me wrong. Some of those, especially the engineer, you could end up like Elon Musk. That could be a very good path. But in general, there's a limit, right? Like a doctor has so many hours in a day, so many patients he can treat. Even if he's, exorbitantly well reimbursed, there's a limit to how much money he can make in a year. But assets, there's no limit, right? You can own one house, you can own 1,000 houses, you can own 1,000,000 houses. There's no limit there. The house works the same. It doesn't require sleep, it doesn't require food, it doesn't get tired, right? So investing in assets, even though, yeah, I guess theoretically, if you're worried about the you live in collapsing, you can't necessarily take your assets with you. That could prove to be difficult depending on what they are. Assets can pay you, they can grow for you, and they're external to you. And the beauty about physical assets versus, say, your own personal capital, your own personal skills and assets and talents is just like they said they can't take your skills and your knowledge away from you. Well, that's not entirely true. Granted, probably whoever they are, can't do that. But you could have a stroke. You get sick, right? You'd be in a car accident. Things can happen to you that make your investment in yourself not worthwhile or not valuable. Whereas if you have assets, things can happen to those too. But it's much, much easier. If you have a house and it pays you $1,000 a month, let's say, good house, and that house burns down in a fire, you can go to insurance. You can go to insurance for the cost of replacing the house. You can go to insurance for income lost while the house is being replaced. You can go to insurance for whatever other damages or expenses arise out of the loss of that house, as long as it's insured properly. If you get cancer and you have to spend the next 4 years fighting for your life, there's not a lot of insurance is going to do for you. I guess you could probably get sickness insurance. I don't know what it costs or who gets it. Most people probably don't. Obviously, there's health insurance if you're an American and you need hospital care, or even if you're Canadian, maybe depending, right? Supplement. And obviously, there's health care, public, private, wherever you live, that you can go to. But if you're a doctor making $5 million a year and now you're fighting cancer and you can't work, there's no insurance company that's going to now pay you your $5 million, to the best of my knowledge. Maybe a doctor could let me know that I'm wrong, but to the best of my knowledge, there's no guarantee there. But with a portfolio of cash flowing real estate, all right, so you got cancer. Those houses are still going to pay you. True, if you were the one who was managing them, you might need to offload that duty, which is going to reduce your income. But it can be done, and those properties are still going to make you money, right? Also, you get sick. Maybe you need a surgery or something. Let's say you need $1 million in medical care. That would suck. It'd be terrible, but let's just say it happens. If you're a doctor, you can't cut off your arms. I don't know, let's say you're a surgeon. You can't cut off your arms and give them to somebody and say, hey, give me the $1 million right now. Advance me that $1 million. Here's my arms. You can't do that. True, as a doctor, you'll probably have access to a pretty good debt instrument, but you probably can't just chop off your arms and give them, right? But if you have a portfolio of cash flowing properties, is that $1 million? Okay, well, I'm going to have to sell 2 houses. And obviously, I'm going to be a lot poorer because I'm just about to spend $1 million on my health. But I have the $1 million. I can do that. That is possible, right? So, there's a certain flexibility to building up a portfolio of cash flowing properties as well. Anyways, that's what I wanted to say this morning, just to talk about and reiterate the value of cash flowing real estate and the cash flowing portfolio, and how and why you should build one, and what it can do for your financial future, for your life, for your freedom. Independence is truly, it's more than just money. A lot of people think financial freedom, blah, blah, it's about money. It's really not. It's about independence. I think if nothing else, we saw in the last couple of years with COVID and everything else that people are prone to groupthink, to herd thinking, to herd mentality. And you know what? There's nothing really wrong with that. There's often a lot of wisdom in the crowd, right? Turns out a lot of times a big group of people are likely to know more than you, an individual, know, right? That is how life tends to work. And so people naturally and understandably fall into this kind of groupthink, which obviously can be very dangerous when the group is wrong, right? And what we saw certainly with COVID was when people tried to question the group think because they weren't confident, and I'm not here to pass a judgment one way or the other. I've got my opinions, but, it doesn't really matter. But these people, they weren't necessarily comfortable going along with what the group had decided. Well, the group pressured them, right? And what did we see? Things like, oh, well, you can't go to work then. Oh, well, you're going to need mask mandates. You're going to need this. You're going to need that. You're going to need the next thing, right? I think a lot of certainly Canadians were very saddened to see a lot of their fellow Canadians bend the knee to these types of measures. Whether they agreed with masking or vaccinating or this or that, I don't think a lot of Canadians liked the way we pursued the policy, regardless of how they actually felt about the intervention. And so I look at that and I see that as a function of, well, that's because most Canadians are not financially independent. They have no freedom. You're not free if you're relying on somebody else to feed you. That's really the truth of life. You might have a degree of freedom. You may have some choice in your life. You may have some flexibility. But if at the end of the day, somebody can say, I'm not going to pay you and you're not going to get any money anymore, you're not going to be able to buy food. You're not going to be able to buy clothes. You're not going to be able to put a roof over your head. I want to be careful with my language here, but you're not a free person. And I don't mean that as in there's anything nefarious going on. I just mean this is the statement of fact about life. And, all of us, doesn't matter who you are. If you're listening to me, then you have ancestors that were farmers. Guaranteed. All of us do. Those people, when they worked on a farm, whenever that was, whether it was 50 years ago or 500 years ago, they were independent. That farm fed them. It probably clothed them in a lot of cases. It may have provided them with the firewood and the other things they needed to heat their homes. They were independent. There was no, you could come to them and say, oh, do this or else you won't be able to eat. You could stop them from eating. Sure, you come with swords or guns or whatever. You kill people, of course. That's always, violent coercion has always been an option. But you couldn't just peacefully coerce them by saying, do this or else I'm not going to pay you. Because they were farmers. They could feed themselves. And so humans through all of history have evolved or developed, however you want to put it, to be creatures who are self-sufficient and who can tell one another, leave me alone. I don't want to participate. I don't want anything to do with you. And it's strange that in modernity, we've progressed / regressed, right? We've progressed so far and developed so much interdependence that we've regressed away from being independent of each other. And it's a very dangerous thing because it means that individual wisdom can get lost in the crowd. And while I said the crowd often has more knowledge than any given individual, that is true. That knowledge consists of individuals. There's no actual wisdom in the particular crowd, right? It's an individual in that crowd who knows more than you, right? It's true. If there's 100 people, the odds are somebody in that crowd knows stuff that you don't, right? But the crowd doesn't know anything that you don't. Crowds are stupid. People are smart. And so independence is very important. So, focus on cultivating an independent life for yourself. And, if freedom finds you, I think it's food for the soul in a lot of ways. I think in so many ways, I think a lot of people look at our modern society and they feel empty, like something is missing. And they blame a lot of things. Some people blame, gender dynamics and dating, and some people blame drugs, and some people blame pop culture, and some people blame the war on drugs, and some people blame, central bank money for, the list of gripes and complaints are endless. Some people blame materialism, some people blame religion, some people blame a lack of religion, etc., etc. And I think probably the greatest thing is actually a lack of independence, and that people don't feel that they have the independence or the freedom to think or do for themselves. And so many of us spend their lives looking over our shoulders to see what the other people are doing, to make sure that we're not too far out of the lines of acceptable behavior that we never spend any time looking forward at what we want to be doing. And I think that's a sad state of affairs, and I'd love to change that in whatever small way I can. So I hope you heard this. I hope this is the message that you needed to hear, if not the message you wanted to hear, and that it helps you to get started or to reinvigorate your mission or to continue striving. And you know what? If you have any questions, concerns, etc., please send me an email, leave me a comment. I'd love for you to reach out, and I'd love to help out if I can. Anyways, thank you for your time this morning, and I can't wait to see you again next week. I hope the audio quality and everything was okay. I know there was some background noise, and I don't know how that comes across the stream for you guys, but please give me some feedback, and hopefully I'll see you again next week. Take care now.